Everybody, welcome back. Episode 2. This is my brain, ADHD, autism, and OCD, and why that song won't leave my mind. So I'll be honest with you right off the gate. I had a completely different topic planned for today. I was going to do something on UAPs and the government files and aliens and all of that. I actually sat down to record it and I just wasn't feeling it. The energy wasn't there. And I've learned enough about myself to know that when I'm not feeling something, it comes through. You would have heard it. So I stopped, switched gears, and now we're here. And honestly, I think this topic is more important anyway, because this one is personal. Today we're talking about neurodivergence, specifically ADHD, autism, and OCD. We're going to talk about what they actually are, how they actually show up in real life, not the textbook version, the real version. And I'm going to share some of my own stuff with you because I think that's the only way this conversation means anything. I'm also going to talk about something that I don't hear people connect this enough: earworms. You know, when you hear a song and it just gets absolutely stuck in your head and plays on a loop for the rest of the day, whether you want it to or not, that's not just an annoying random thing. That is very much connected to how neurodivergent brain works. And I want to get into that. So let's go. What does neurodivergent actually mean? Before we get specific, I want to clear up what neurodivergent actually means because I think people throw the word around without really unpacking it. Neurodivergent just means your brain is wired differently from what's considered standard. That's it. It's not a diagnosis itself, it's an umbrella term. It covers ADHD, autism, OCD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette's, and a few others. The idea behind the word is that these aren't broken brains, they're different brains. They process information differently and respond to the world differently and have a different set of strengths and struggles than what most systems, schools, workplaces, social structures were designed for. Here's the thing that I think is really important to understand: the world was largely built by and for neurotypical people. The school system, the 9 to 5 work schedule, social rules about eye contact and small talk and sitting still, all of that was designed with one type of brain in mind. And then there are those people whose brains don't work that way. And for a long time, the response was to call them lazy or difficult or weird or broken. And a lot of those people grew up carrying that label, carrying that shame, thinking something was wrong with them, when actually their brains just speak different language. That reframe changed everything for me when I really sat with it. And I hope it does something for you too, whether this is your story or someone you love. This one I know personally, and that's ADHD. Let's talk about it. This one I can speak from the inside. I'm diagnosed. This is my brain. And I want to start by saying ADHD does not look like what movies and television taught you it looks like. It's not just a hyperactive little boy who can't sit still in class. This is one version of one presentation, and it has caused an enormous amount of harm because it meant that for decades, the people who didn't fit that image, especially girls, especially adults, especially people who internalized everything, went completely undiagnosed. ADHD has three presentations. There's the hyperactive, impulsive type, which is the one people usually picture. There's the intentive type, which is quieter, more internal, more about a brain that drifts and daydreams and loses things and forgets, struggles to follow through. And there's the combined type, which is both. Here's what ADHD actually feels like from the inside. Imagine your brain is a browser with 47 tabs open at all times. Some of them are playing music. A few of them are loading and never finishing. One of them is the thing you actually need to focus on, but you can't find it because there are 46 other tabs. And here's the really frustrating part. You can't just close the tabs. They're not under your control. They open themselves. And then there's something called hyperfocus. This is the part people don't talk about enough. ADHD is not an inability to focus. It's an inability to regulate focus. Because the same brain that cannot sit down and do the boring task it needs to can also lock onto something interesting and not come up for air for 6 hours. You forget to eat. You forget people are waiting for you. You lose track of time completely. Because when something catches the ADHD brain, when the dopamine kicks in, it goes all in. Now, here's where my kids come in. I'm not going to put anything on them publicly that isn't mine to say, but I'll tell you this. Watching my kids, I see myself. I see the things that nobody caught in me when I was young. The distraction, the losing things, the emotional intensity, the way certain things can capture their attention completely, and other things just won't stick no matter how many times you go over it. None of them are diagnosed, but I know what I'm looking at. And part of why I wanted to do this episode is because I think there are parents out there who are watching and their kids struggle and being told their kid is bad or lazy or not trying when actually their kid's brain just needs to be understood differently. ADHD also has a significant emotional component that almost never gets talked about. There's something called rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD, and it's the experience of emotional pain in response to perceived rejection or criticism that is way out of proportion to what's happening. It's not being dramatic, it's a neurological response. A lot of people with ADHD have it. A lot of them have been told their whole life that they're too sensitive. What they actually have is a brain that registers social pain differently. Next is autism, and the one I'm still figuring out. Okay, this one is more vulnerable for me to talk about because I don't have a diagnosis. What I have is a suspicion, and it's a wrong one. Over the last several months, I've gone down a rabbit hole. And if you have ADHD, you know exactly how that goes. Watching video after video after video of people who've been diagnosed with autism as adults. And I keep having this experience where I'd be watching somebody describe their life and I'd be thinking, that's me. That's exactly me. Not once or twice, over and over and over. I want to be clear. I am not self diagnosing. I'm not sitting here telling you I'm autistic. What I'm telling you is that something in those videos made me feel seen in a way I didn't expect. And I think that experience is more common than people realize right now. So tell me what you think autism actually is, because the public understanding of autism is still very much stuck in one image. And like with ADHD, the image has left a whole lot of people without answers for a very long time. Autism is a neurological difference that affects how a person processes the world socially, sensory wise, and in terms of how they communicate and connect. It is a spectrum, which means it looks wildly different from person to person. There is no single autistic experience. Some autistic people are nonverbal. Some are highly verbal, but struggle deeply with unspoken and social rules. Some have significant support needs. Some are what's called high masking, meaning that they learn early on to perform neurotypically so well that nobody around them has any idea. The last one, that's the one that gets me. High masking autism, sometimes called late identified autism, is when someone has been autistic their whole life, but compensated so effectively, studied social situations so carefully, learned to perform the expected responses so well that they passed. They got through school, they held jobs, they had relationships. But underneath all of that performing There was an enormous amount of exhaustion. Social situations that should feel natural require intense conscious effort. After being around people, you need to completely decompress alone. You replay conversations in your head after wondering if you said the wrong thing. You noticed every shift in someone's tone. You have a small number of topics that you care about intensely, and everything else feels like noise. Do you have, does any of that sound familiar to you? Because when I heard it described that way, something clicked. The social impact piece is what gets me most. A lot of autistic adults, especially those who got diagnosed late, describe spending their whole lives feeling like they were watching other people from behind the glass. Like everyone else gets a manual for how to be a person and they never got theirs. Picking up on the unspoken rules that neurotypical people follow without thinking. The right amount of eye contact when it's your turn to talk. What a person means when they say something different from what the words actually say. That stuff doesn't come automatically, it gets learned. And the learning is exhausting. I'm not there yet in terms of answers for myself, but I wanted to share where I am in the process because I think there are a lot of people listening who are in the same place, quietly watching videos, quietly wondering, feeling like they can't say anything about it until it's official. And I just want to say, wherever you are in that process is okay. The wondering is valid and it might lead somewhere important. Next, let's talk about OCD for a minute because this one gets misrepresented more than almost any other mental health condition. OCD is not liking your house clean. OCD is not organizing your spice rack by a height. OCD is not being particular about things or having high standards. When people say, I'm so OCD about that because they like things neat, it flattens the reality of what actual OCD is, and it makes it harder for people who genuinely have it to be taken seriously. OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. It has two components: obsessions and compulsions. And they work together in a loop that can genuinely, it can be genuinely debilitating. The obsessions are unwanted, intrusive thoughts. And here's the part that's really important to understand: the thoughts themselves are not the problem. Everybody has intrusive thoughts. The difference with OCD is that the brain gets stuck on them. It can't move past them. It treats a passing thought as a real threat that needs to be neutralized. And the more the person tries to push the thought away, the louder it gets. the uh, the compulsions are the behaviors that the person does try to relieve the anxiety because the anxiety caused by the obsession, checking things, counting things, repeating actions a certain number of times, asking for reassurance over and over, avoiding situations that trigger the obsession. And here's the cruel part: the compulsion brings temporary relief, but it actually reinforces the cycle. It teaches the brain that the obsession was a real threat worth responding to, which makes the obsession come back stronger. OCD can attach itself to almost anything. A lot of people have contamination OCD, fear of germs, illness, being responsible for making someone sick. Some people have what's called pure O, primarily obsessive OCD, where the compulsions are mostly mental rather than physical. Some people have harm OCD, where intrusive thoughts involve fear or accidentally hurting someone they love. These are not violent people. They are often most gentle. Gentle, caring people you'll ever meet. And their brain torments them with thoughts that go against everything they actually are. OCD also has a significant overlap with both ADHD and autism. All three of these conditions can show up together in the same person, which is something the medical community is paying a lot more attention to now than it used to. Okay, the earworm thing. I promised we'd get here, and I really want to talk about this because it connects everything we've been discussing in a way that I find genuinely fascinating. An earworm is what happens when a fragment of a song gets stuck in your brain and plays on a involuntary loop. The scientific term for it is involuntary musical imagery, or INMI. And it happens to most people at least occasionally. But research is starting to show that it happens more frequently, more intensely, and for longer periods of time in people with ADHD and autism. And when you understand why, it actually makes a lot of sense. For ADHD brains, music does something really specific. It provides stimulation. It provides rhythm and predictability in a way that helps regulate an otherwise chaotic internal experience. A lot of people with ADHD find that they focus better with playing music. That's not distraction, it's actually the opposite. The music occupies the part of the brain that would otherwise be chasing every random thought, which frees up the rest of their brain to actually work. So when a song gets into an ADHD brain, especially a song with a strong hook, a repeating pattern, something satisfying and rhythmic, the brain grabs onto it hard because it's stimulating, because it feels good neurologically, because dopamine. For autistic people, the connection to music is even deeper. Music is ordered. It's predictable. It follows rules. It doesn't have the ambiguity and shifting social dynamics that make human interaction so exhausting. A lot of autistic people describe music as one of the purest forms of communication they experience, something that makes sense in a way that other things don't. So when a song connects, it really connects, and the brain doesn't want to let it go. I get earworms constantly, and I don't just mean a song playing in the background of my brain. I mean full, involuntary, full volume, complete loop all day. I hear 8 seconds of something while I'm pumping gas and I'm done for the next 4 hours. My brain has that song and it's not giving it up. And it's not even always a song I like. Sometimes it's a song I can't stand, and my brain just decided we're doing this now. And here's the thing I want to say about that: it used to frustrate me. It used to feel like one more example of my brain doing something I didn't ask it to do. But when I learned the connection to how neurodivergent brains process music and stimulation, it reframed it for me. My brain isn't broken. My brain is doing what it's built to do. It found something stimulating and it's holding on to it because that's what it knows how to do. That's actually kind of beautiful, even if it's annoying. One more thing I want to touch up on before I wrap up because I think it's really important. There's a massive wave of adults right now, particularly people in their 30s and 40s, who are getting diagnosed with ADHD and autism for the first time. And I want to talk about what that experience is like because it's not just relief, it's complicated. When you get a late diagnosis, or when you start seriously considering that a diagnosis might apply to you, there's often a grieving process because you start looking back at your life through a new lens. You start seeing all the moments where you struggled and were told it was your fault. All the jobs, the relationships, situations where you felt like you were failing at something everyone else found easy. And you realize that wasn't you being weak or lazy or not trying hard. That was your brain working against a system that wasn't designed for it. That realization can bring enormous relief. And it can also bring a lot of grief because you can't go back. You can't unexperience those years. You can't tell the version of yourself that was 14 and being called a problem child that they weren't a problem. They were just different. What you can do is go forward with better information. You can start understanding your own patterns in a new way. You can stop blaming yourself for things that were never actually your fault. And if you have kids, like I do, you can pay attention. You can see the signs early. You can be the parent who says, I see you. I understand what's happening in your brain, and we're going to figure this out together. Instead of the parent who repeats the same mistakes that were made with you. That's actually one of the things that drives me to even have this conversation, because I don't want my kids to carry what I carried. I don't want them to get to adulthood and realize they've been misunderstood their whole lives when someone could have seen it sooner. That's episode 2. This one felt right. This one felt like something worth saying. And I hope something in it landed for you. Whether you're figuring yourself out or figuring out someone you love, or just learn something you didn't know before. If any of this sounded like your story, the ADHD, the masking, the earworms that won't quit, the quiet suspicion that there's a name for something you've been experiencing your whole life, you're not alone, not even close. There are more of us than you think. And we're all just figuring it out in real time. Come back tomorrow, shooting for a new episode every single day. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Take care of yourselves. As always, stay you, be you, do you. I will see you tomorrow.